Alrighty guys, so today we are doing a comparison between the Zhiyun Weebill 3 and the DJI RS3 because they're kind of like in similar kind of like price brackets and payload brackets. So let's do some side-by-side comparisons and let's see which one is not necessarily better, but which one I guess is better for your kind of shooting style. Alright guys, so the camera we're going to be using for all these comparison tests is the Canon R6 with the 16 to 35mm f2.8 lens. Alrighty, so we are going to do a quick test because Luke has never used the Weebill 3 or the RS3 before. So I'm going to quickly go for a little walk around. He's going to shoot some BTS of me, and then we're basically going to do a quick comparison, or not comparison, we're going to ask him what he thinks is his favorite from this quick little test as well. Just like I guess kind of like at a first glance sort of thing. What am I gonna do? I need to like make a path that I can follow. Let's go walking up until the bin, and then we'll go for a bit of a jog. Alright, we'll go for a bit of a jog down here. Alright, so we're gonna go for a bit of a run, get some running stuff going on. Run through these trees. First thoughts?
Pretty good, yeah. I have used the Crane 3S, so this is so much lighter and I'm extremely out of breath, but yeah, it's awesome. I think it was really smooth. I had used a Ronin S before. Comparison between the two, I don't know, like it does feel more ergonomic, I think, at this point. That's probably the only real feedback that I can have. Grip felt really good, yeah, it felt probably more rubbery than plasticky. And that little battery sort of section down the bottom was good because I could rest my fingers on there, and that just felt like I had more control and not so much pressure on my wrist. But yeah, it's good.
All right, so doing the same test on the RS3. Again, Luke has never used the RS3, so let's see how this goes. Now we've basically set up both gimbals with somewhat default settings, so we just kind of like took them out, balanced them up, and did an auto calibration, so we haven't actually tweaked anything too much. So this is kind of like how you're going to get it out of the box and the performance that you get. We've also turned off the IBIS on the R6 as well, so there's no kind of like, there's nothing helping out the smoothing on the actual footage itself, and there's also no image stabilization on the lens itself. So that is what we're doing.
It was good, felt heavier. We did 2 runs of that. It was on medium, and then the second one was on what do we have? On fast. And I still felt I had to give it a little bit more input to get those movements, but overall pretty similar, but I felt the Weebill's heaps more comfortable and a little bit lighter and easier to respond to my movements. The grip didn't feel as soft on this one. Extremely out of breath, but yeah, the grip on the other one just felt a little bit squishier and probably a little bit more comfortable and pliable on my hand.
Alrighty, so in terms of size between the RS3 and the Weebill 3, they are very similar. The Weebill 3 is just slightly smaller than the RS3. Once they kind of like unfold and build out, they're very similar size, but packed down, Weebill 3 is slightly smaller. Now, when we're looking at battery life, the Weebill 3 absolutely dominates in this field. So they boast that it has a 21-hour runtime in this. Insane, like, that is crazy. Whereas on the other hand, the RS3 has a 12-hour runtime. So 12 hours is still a lot of time. Like, you can probably still get a whole day out of that, but I guess if you want to use it for more, then you're gonna have to charge it. One benefit of the RS3 is that it has that removable handle. So if potentially you had another battery handle, you could have another one on standby, and you could basically, you know, have this one charged up, swap it out throughout the day, and then put it back on charge. That is super cool. Absolute worst case scenario, you could put a battery, power bank or a V-Lock battery on here and have it running power into the actual gimbal itself. So one of the annoying things about the RS3, so when you do a slow pan, it's fine. It's all good, everything stays in sync. When you try to like a fast pan, it does this weird, see the axis kind of like rotates, which is really awkward and not ideal if that's kind of like what you're wanting to do, those fast movements. Right, so now on the Zhiyun Weebill 3, if we do the same test, there's a little bit of play, nowhere near as much as it was on the RS3.
So again, if you're doing a lot of kind of fast moving actions, Weebill 3 is going to be a better option for you.
Now, one thing to note is that the RS3 has like a super smooth mode that's supposed to basically make it as smooth as possible. But whenever I tested it out, it just didn't work the way that I thought it would. I'm not sure if it's meant to basically work where it's just like you're not moving too much and just keeping those things more stable, or if like it's for when you're running where you're not necessarily moving the gimbal from like side to side or up and down. It's just trying to like lock it in place better. But when we used it, it just didn't really work the way I thought it would. Now, in terms of payload, the RS3 and the Weebill 3 can both take about 3 kilos, and the setup that I was using was about 1.5 kilos. So there is still room to add like bigger lenses and slightly bigger bodies. However, like the R6 was obviously like probably the widest that you'd be able to fit on both these cameras, but obviously you can add more length in terms of like bigger lenses or longer lenses onto these gimbals. Now, one major difference that might be a deciding factor between getting the RS3 and the Weebill 3 is the fact that it has a built-in mic and a built-in light on the Weebill 3 itself. Now, for me personally, I'm never really going to use the light on this gimbal. I prefer to kind of like have something further away from the camera, just get a bit of a nicer light source. But if you are like kind of like a run and gun shooter, or you just need something at night time to basically add a bit of ambient feel or just have something there, it's really good to have it built in, so you don't have to actually like mount something on the camera itself or be able to hold something to basically light your subject. But a huge benefit of having a mic built into the gimbal itself is that you don't have to mount anything on top of your camera. And if you've used gimbals in the past, you know the sacrifice you actually have to make to mount a mic on top of your camera, which basically means that you can no longer go underslung because there's just no space. All the motors hit on and it just doesn't work. Alrighty, so this is using the built-in mic on the gimbal on the Weebill 3 itself. This is a mic test. How does this sound? And our comparison, this is using the built-in mic on the R6 itself. So this is a sound test. How does this sound? In terms of the design, they are very, very similar. The only real thing that I can see that's different is this battery bit on the bottom of the Weebill 3. And basically, if we look at it, it kind of just like, I guess, sticks out. And this is probably one of the reasons why it has that longer battery time, because it has this extra surface area here that they could fit batteries in. But one benefit of it is that obviously when you are going underslung, you now have something to basically kind of like catch your hand. So like this, like I don't really have to hold it that much to basically go underslung without any other accessories. Whereas if we jump over to the RS3, if we go underslung, there's nothing to stop your hand from slipping up, which means that you basically have to be holding onto it the whole time. And it puts a lot of tension on your wrist here, which is why I actually prefer when we're going underslung, the Weebill 3. Because again, when you're underslung, you just have that extra support here, which is really nice. Now, if you were to get the combo with the Weebill 3, you also get this little wrist support in there as well, which again, so good. Even using it upright or underslung, again, it just distributes the weight more onto like kind of like your forearm rather than putting it all onto your wrist, which is so good. One really interesting thing about the RS3 is that when you turn it on, it auto unlocks and it auto basically gets ready. And then when you power it off, it goes back into lock mode. Now, this is super handy if say you're like, I don't know, a wedding videographer and you're gonna be turning it on and off all the time. But basically, if you're not gonna be turning it on and off all the time, it's not that big of a deal. Like it doesn't take that long to lock it up. One of the actual downsides of it is that when you turn it on without a camera on, like say you're trying to change settings or something, this is what happens. which surely can't be good for the motors. You wanna say hi to everyone? Hey? You wanna say hi? Oh no. You wanna say hi to everyone? Hey?
So this little structure behind me is so perfect for Vortex Mode. Like, look how good these shots are.
Now the RS3 has a full color touch to screen, which is really, really nice to use and very intuitive. And basically you can access all the features from there. Whereas the Weebill 3 just has a I don't know, black and white screen on it. And you basically control everything via the buttons on the side and the scroll wheel. And one awkward thing about the RS3 is that with the quick release system, you basically have to use the riser plate. Whereas if you didn't want to use a riser plate, essentially this base plate is going to have like an inch of metal hanging off the back that was just going to get in the way of everything. I much prefer the plate on the Weebill 3 where basically it has the same sort of quick release system, but you can also mount the camera directly at the back so you're not going to have any clearance issues as well. However, one thing I'm not the biggest fan of the Weebill 3 quick release is that it is back and forwards, not side to side. And with my R6 mounted on the Weebill 3, I basically have to push it all the way over to the right side, touching the actual arm to balance it, which means that I can't move it back and forwards to basically disconnect it, which means that the quick release system doesn't work when using big cameras like the R6. Right, now I do have to say, and I said this in my full review of the Weebill 3 as well, this is kind of like the first gimbal that I have reviewed that has actually like really blown me away in terms of like taking this out of the box, putting my camera on it, and it just working straight away. Like a lot of gimbals, I don't know, they take a little bit of, I guess, effort to make them work good. I'm guessing it's the Gen 10 algorithm that's in this because it's just, I don't know, it's just literally everyone I gave it to as well, they were just like, this is just so easy to use and just so smooth to operate. Now in terms of price, the Weebill 3 is slightly cheaper than the RS3, even in the kit mode as well when you get the handle and that wrist support. However, the RS3 comes with that focus motor, so that's something you don't get with the Weebill 3. Anyway guys, if you did enjoy this comparison between the Weebill 3 and the RS3, then consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to find out any more about these products, I'll leave them linked down below. Otherwise, stay creative and just be you. Have fun.